We told you a couple days ago about a situation in the Issaquah School District where a student group, although it's not an official student club, but students at Issaquah High School have decided in their infinite wisdom to hold a walkout for Palestine on October 7th. Now, to me, that sends a pretty clear message, yeah?
So proud of my alma mater.
It is, I'm still sick to my stomach just even talking about this, because you can tell that these are a bunch of kids to the extent of their involvement. Again, I don't know how many students might even do this. I'm hoping, however, that we shame them enough that they don't end up doing it. But you know that they have been led astray, that they don't have parents in their lives who are course correcting for them. And when you're dealing with like a 16, 17-year-old, yeah, parents, you need to get involved in course correcting your kid. But since we talked about it a couple days ago, and since I've spoken to some parents who've either heard directly from their kid or witnessed what was going on there, there's been some questions as to whether or not the district is being honest, or at least the high school is being honest with the district when talking to me about what's going on, because we were told that not only is this not an approved event with a student club that's not a club here, we don't recognize them as a student club. I was told that if there are flyers up and the school, quote unquote, finds out about it, as if it wouldn't be easy to like look on a wall and see a bunch of signs, that they take it down and, they discipline to the extent that discipline is called for. But we do not allow for this sort of stuff. We won't condemn it, of course, but we don't allow for it. Okay, fine. Why is it that I've got a bunch of parents telling me that flyers are everywhere around the school and that students with this club decided to set up a table to hand out flyers and donuts along with them? Why is it that I'm hearing from students via their parents saying that you can find flyers pretty much everywhere? It seems a little bit like a conflict in what I've been told by the district and what the reality is on the ground. So I went back to the spokesperson, of whom I'm not assuming is lying to me. I don't think she's lying to me. I'm wondering if she's got the right information, though. And so she said, hey, I will look into this. I'll talk to the staff members today. I'll get back to you as soon as I can. She did get back to me, and she said, we had a report of flyers from that group being put up inside the school. The flyers were not approved by us and are not allowed. We removed the flyers as soon as we found out about them. And when we have evidence of who put the flyers up, we will address that directly per our regulations. Now, perhaps this is, and you know this school as an alum, perhaps this is one of the schools that don't have any surveillance cameras anywhere?
I don't think that's the case.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm guessing that there's probably some surveillance footage of who's putting up the flyers. So it doesn't seem, to me at least, to be that difficult to figure out who's behind this.
Shouldn't be.
I'm told by some parents, hey, you know what? I do think that this is a small group of kids who are involved here because we are a pretty, red area. We've got way more conservatives who live in this district. And I don't know necessarily if I believe that extends to students per se, but let's say that that's absolute truth. Then we probably, at a district level, they got to know who's responsible for all of this. There can't be that many students who hate Jews there, right? Literally walk the halls and tell me who has a keffiyeh on. Just point to that kid and let's just assume that that's the kid who's involved, because there's only going to be a small handful of them. But when you tell me that this is not something that we approve of, this is not something that's happening on campus, I'm sorry, but the flyer says they're literally meeting outside of Issaquah High School. And something tells me that they might block the entrances or the main entrance into the school if they bring enough people to their Jew-hating event on October 7th. I've got photos of the flyer. I've just posted one up at KTTH.com. They talk about how they're pushing back against not just 365 days of genocide, but this is especially disgusting on this flyer for an event on October 7th. It's for, quote unquote, 365 days of resistance. Now, what might that message be?
That slaughtering innocent women and children is resistance.
Yeah. That Hamas, the great freedom fighters that they are only doing what they can to survive against those evil Jews. And if not for the rape of innocent women before ultimately being slaughtered at a music festival, Hamas would not be able to live in the peace that they have so fought valiantly for in Gaza. Things have been going great in Gaza up until the Jews got involved. This is disgusting. This is seriously disgusting. I talked a little bit about it this morning on Varney and Company. I was on to talk about the Netanyahu speech and some of the reactions outside of the UN. It went precisely the way you thought it would go outside of the UN when Netanyahu is in town in New York. And he asked me about this new study that had come out by the Robert Kraft Foundation talking about how in this country, the folks who considered themselves to be allies of Jews in Israel was cut in half. And essentially, the haters grew by about half. And he asked me why I thought that was. And the answer is pretty simple, right? I mean, it's propaganda. When you have propaganda just being blanketed out there, especially amongst young people, it does end up having an effect on them. And I ended up bringing up the Issaquah story, and he stopped me. He goes, whoa. Am I hearing you correctly? Did you just say that they're actually planning something on October? Did you actually say that? And the look on his face tells you everything you need to know, that this is so beyond the pale of what anyone should say is appropriate. And for the district to not say anything in condemnation of this is disgusting. Does anyone think, whether we're talking about this district or Seattle Public Schools or Bellevue, whichever, if it was a bunch of kids with tiki torches marching, which they have the First Amendment right to do you think it would get such a muted response? Just a note in a newsletter that was a copy and paste almost of a previous note they left in April, which basically said, students have a First Amendment right, but we do not tolerate hate speech, and if we see anything, we'll do something. No, that's not good enough. I expect that. We know you're going to do that. The question is, why are you not simply condemning this? This has nothing to do with free speech. You're not stopping them from doing it. You get to condemn things that are deplorable, to use your favorite word on the left. Why not? Because you either agree with the kids or you're too cowardly to say anything. Both are horrible positions for you to hold. This is disgusting. And imagine it from the perspective of a Jewish family who has to realize that they're sending their kid to a school with an administration that doesn't seem to be all that bothered by a hate rally against Israel on October 7th. And as I've said before, I don't particularly enjoy calling out kids who are passionate about issues, right? I often disagree with student activists that we cover on this show, but I can at least appreciate them getting involved in something, getting involved in a cause. But when the cause is in support of terrorism, dare I say, it's not something to admire. It's not something to be silent about. And I was cautioned against writing something that I wrote today in my blog at KTTH.com. I considered it. I said, I'm going to respectfully ignore your advice and say exactly what it is I was thinking and still think. That the kids who are involved in something like this, they're going to be exactly the kids who you think they are. They're going to sound and look and act exactly the way that you're thinking. These are pathetic, whiny nobodies who will never contribute anything but more useless noise to a world that is already sick and tired of them. And if they've got parents who are aware of what is going on and they're just sitting back and admiring little Jimmy for getting out of the house and actually doing something, if they're just sitting back and letting this pathetic and sad excuse for activism slide, then it's no wonder that these kids will grow up to be failures, to living a life of total and utter mediocrity. And in 10 years, these same parents who are saying nothing about their rotten kids participating in something on October 7th like this, they're going to be wondering, hey, why is my kid still parked in his childhood bedroom, spooning stale cereal into his face hole every single day? Why is my kid when is he going to get a job? When's he going to get out of the house? Why does he spend all day hate watching Fox News? What's going on here? Well, I hope you'll remember to the 10 years earlier and realize that you are a big part of that problem, that you helped create this lazy do-nothing kid who only gets out of the house when he can take some time off from his part-time barista job at the local Starbucks so he can go down to Capitol Hill in Seattle and complain about whatever else the cops did that day that annoyed them, like putting on a uniform or getting into a patrol vehicle. That's what we're dealing with here. And yet, dare I say, these are kids who can still be saved. Dare I say that these are kids who can be course corrected, but they have to have like responsible adults in their lives. And if the parents aren't going to do it, you would hope that the school might step up and say something. Well, they're not gonna. And so I guess it's on me and all of you to shame these kids. I don't like shaming 16. Well, sometimes I like shaming 16. It kind of depends on the 16-year-old. I'd prefer not to shame a 16-year-old or a 17-year-old. I'd prefer that, truly. But someone needs to. Seriously, someone needs to. Now, it's me, so they'll say, oh, look, that Jew is trying to shame me. So Gentiles, get together and start shaming. Can't just be the Jew who's doing it.